Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. The other day I was driving along one of our roads and it was over in the Colton area. And this great big bird flew across in front of the car and I'm like, what in the world is that? And then I saw the long neck and the face. And it was a great blue heron. And I'm thinking, it can't be. Great blue herons migrate in the winter. So I started studying up on these birds because it doesn't make sense. When you have a bird that feeds primarily on fish, if the fish aren't available to it, then they're going to go someplace else where they can survive. Now, ospreys are an example. They migrate every year. They leave before the ice starts and they head south. And then they come back in the spring once the ice melts. But for great blue herons, because they have sort of a flexibility built into them for diet choices, and I didn't realize this before, they still rely primarily on fish. So I'm thinking, how could they feed on fish right now? When the water's frozen, especially the shorelines are frozen, then how are they going to eat? But apparently not. Maybe the rivers, for example, the Racket River, and maybe the shoreline there will enable them to feed where you wouldn't think they would be able to do it in the winter. I don't know, but the Racket River constantly has the dams opening up the water, so you've got fresh influxes of current and so forth that help keep areas from freezing. So that might be a possibility. A lot of times we don't realize what some of the beings around us, what their lifestyle is. For example, I mentioned ospreys. But turkey buzzards, they leave every year. They leave in the fall and they come back in the spring. And so many of the birds that you normally would see, you don't see in the wintertime because the conditions make it impossible for them to survive. So my great blue heron, and they have become a bird that I've become more familiar with, and I share part of my life with them. I've told you many stories of how when I wade the rivers, a lot of times I'll find myself just a few feet away from a great blue heron who is patiently feeding along the shoreline. And a lot of the ways that I fish when I'm alone are very patiently and slowly examples of how I enjoy fishing the most. But the other thing that I want you to realize is that great blue herons, they're a huge part of a fisherman's life up here, because what they indicate, if you go fishing and you see a great blue heron, you know that there must be food there. They wouldn't waste their time being in an area where they know they can't eat. So they're a great indicator. And it gives me sort of a memory of fishing salt water. I haven't fished a lot of salt water in my life, but when we have, one of the things that we always look for is birds, because those birds know that if fish are in a feeding spree, they're going to force bait to the surface. There's going to be a lot of commotion there. And if you see a group of birds feeding right down near the surface of the water, you know that there's food there. There's fish. There's predators that are attacking prey. So again, the great blue heron has been a friend of mine, but it made me think when I saw one in the winter. I've never seen one around here before in the winter, but there is a reason. And apparently they're a lot more hardy and able to adapt to changing conditions than a lot of other species. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.